Champions 2022 is slated to be the biggest tournament of the year. North America and EU are still as dominant as ever, but there is tons of international talent that's vying to be the best team in the world. And although the tournament isn't over yet, there is a very clear winner. This team may not have made any huge upsets or even made it to playoffs, but they have made the biggest impact on the international stage by far. I'm talking about Edward Gaming from China. Now, to the untrained eye, this may just look like a poor performance from them as they went out at 13th, but in reality, Champions is just an epilogue in their international journey. While the history books might forget this performance and how they actually got here, I want to tell you about how this team put an entire region on their back and brought them to the biggest stage in the world, and they're playing without even an official version of the game. In 2019, the Tekken fighting game community was dominated by three major regions: North America, Japan, and Korea. While there are other regions with players able to contend, most would fall to these powerhouses' B teams. However, everything changed when a seemingly random Pakistani Tekken player, Arslan Ash, showed up to EVO Japan 2019. Being from Pakistan, it was difficult to obtain visas to travel abroad for tournaments. Instead, the Pakistani Tekken scene continued to play amongst themselves. To most people, he was just another tournament hopeful, but for key onlookers, Arslan Ash's distinct playstyle and philosophy on the game was something scary. Rumblings spread throughout the tournament when the 321st seeded Arslan Ash defeated the first seeded and greatest Tekken player of all time, Ni, in the 4th round. Arslan Ash went on to defeat some of Japan's best in Shukurin, tournament favorites like AK and Cherryberry Mango, the previous EVO champion Lohai, and even the few top North American players in attendance, Rixta and Jimmy J. Tran. Now, these names aren't important, but all of this led to Arslan Ash dominating every obstacle in his path to a first place win at one of the biggest tournaments in the Tekken community, and also his first major international tournament. Arslan Ash's first place performance at EVO Japan 2019, and later his win in EVO Main 2019, solidified Arslan Ash as the best player in the world, and more importantly, put the Pakistani Tekken scene on the map. Fast forward a few years, and at EVO 2022, 4 top-level Pakistani players were in attendance, with 2 making a top 3 finish, including, oh, hey, look at that. Without a champion like Arslan Ash, the Pakistani Tekken community would have never gotten the opportunities that it has now. This is one of my favorite stories in all of esports, and it reminds me a lot of Edward Gaming and their Valorant roster. Their run at the East Asian LCQ and the potential impact they could have for the Chinese Valorant scene going into the 2023 VCT season. Now, I'm not going to lie to you, I have not been following Edward Gaming for all that long, so instead I consulted this man right here to help me out with some of the background. And what I learned is amazing, because the region of China doesn't even have an official version of Valorant out yet. Even though Riot is owned by Tencent, the Chinese mega corporation, as of the release of this video, there is still no official release of Chinese Valorant client. Due to the country's rules and regulations, Valorant has not been allowed. However, this hasn't stopped hopeful Chinese FPS players to continue to compete in the game. Without developer support, China wasn't given their own VCT or even individual tournament support from Riot Games. So this underground Chinese scene had to turn to grassroots efforts. It's easy to take for granted what major regions have for tournament infrastructure, but the few Chinese teams that existed battled through a 2021 year of open brackets and invitational tournaments with one-off supporters. China finally caught their first break when FMWH, a Chinese game developer and broadcasting group, began their own tournament series, the FGC Valorant Invitational. This collected some of the best teams from the region and finally gave them a consistent stage to perform on. Some of the teams stood out from among the pack, including Cone Esports, FunPlus Phoenix China, and Edward Gaming. While all 3 proved to be threats to the title, no team thrived in this environment like Edward Gaming.
It's been a bit more competitive. FunPlus Phoenix's Chinese team took a series off them in Act 3, like the most recent one. But towards the end, they started dominating everyone.
Their amazing team play and masterful aim led them to multiple championships and a win across the entire tournament series. But with no Riot circuit support in sight, it was still looking dim for this Chinese Valorant scene until they caught their second break. They were given a chance to prove themselves at the East Asian Last Chance qualifiers for Champions 2022. The East Asian LCQ included some of the best teams from Japan and Korea, alongside 2 Chinese representatives, which happened to be Cone and Edward Gaming. This wasn't just EDG's chance to make it to the biggest Valorant tournament in the world, but they were carrying the future and the reputation of this underground scene to the main stage. Japan and Korea are regions with amazing teams, and their representatives at the LCQ had international experience and were challenging for that initial slot against their region's best. Meanwhile, this was Edward Gaming's first international tournament, and although they've scrimmed against other East Asian teams, their biggest downside was their lack of experience against international talent. But what proved to be their biggest upside was the international talent's lack of experience against them. Because of the isolation of the underground Chinese Valorant community, bred a unique playstyle for the region.
They just go as a group and they trade everything. They'll push one side of the map, and then one guy dies, oh, they're just going to keep swinging, and that's how they win, because they just have good team fundamentals. And the biggest comparison, I guess, would just be to PaperX, because they play very aggressive, they're in your face, they end rounds quickly, they're going to be pushing on your defense. It's a similar style, but it's less based on utility and more so just going as a pack. Like, they don't let rounds slip because they just trade. It's just how the region just developed. Because when watching them, a lot of teams play the similar way to like the PaperX aggressive in-your-face style. Some teams definitely do have a bit like more variance in how they play in the region, but it's pretty much the same thing. Like, you can expect them to play like EDG.
They focused on high percentage plays that can only be done with precise timing, good aim, and a team that plays selflessly. This playstyle isn't unique to Edward Gaming, but it's EDG that can take this philosophy to its extreme.
Like, especially versus Onslayers. Like, Onslayers did not know how to adapt to it, and they just kept like trying to peek them again and like try and fight back, but that does not work well if they're just going to be going as a group and just trading. Sometimes overheat, yeah, but if everyone's just on it and everyone's like agreeing to the style, that's how they win, I guess, because they just peek you and they'll keep doing it.
The EDG squad is full of young guys with everyone between the age of 18 to 20. Now, it's unclear whether all of these guys competed in Crossfire. They for sure broke out in the FPS community in Valorant. Many of these guys have bounced around various teams, but together they play like a dynasty. The star of the team, which is the one to watch out for, is Can.
I mean, the standout is Kang, like ZMJJK, but he's pretty much their main opper. He plays Chamber a lot. He's, once again, very aggressive with his op. He will peek you, and he very consistent in how he just played in that last East Asian LCQ. And also, I think Nobody too. He's the more of the supportive guy. He's like playing the breach and fade. His utility usage, like on the fly, was really good, and he was also pretty clutch. So I think those two are the main standouts of the team.
Life is their duelist and shares responsibility of first bloods with Can. Chicho is a smoker. Haodong is the flex. Through the box scores of Chicho, Nobody, and Haodong, you can see why these teams work so well together, as their collective's assists are absurd, overwhelming their opponents with numbers to take the round in an advantaged state. Now, if you want to learn more about the specific EDG gameplay, I'll link you Slow's breakdown of their gameplay, as well as the He-Man's Valorant's breakdown of them at Champions itself. This really exemplifies how they worked as a team. Being Edward Gaming's first international performance, there were some mixed opinions. Some people were singing the praises of EDG, having watched their previous performances and knowing their strength in fundamentals, but many had seen the emergence of other teams from fringe regions getting a slot in the LCQ, like Global Esports or Anubis Gaming, which those did not live up to the hype. People knew the strength of Japan and Korea, with their two frontrunners, Northception from Japan and Onslayers from Korea, really making for that shot at Champions. So for EDG to be matched up against tournament favorites in the first round was scary. But if you're watching the video, you know exactly how this goes.
Oh, they take him out. Nobody's gone. Just 2 remaining. Ball over the top. とチャンピオンツアーイーストアジアラストチャンスクオリファイア優勝は中国代表エドワードゲーミング。カンカンも飛び上がってチームメイトのもとに。
Edward Gaming stormed through the LCQ, beating Norception, Reject, and double eliminating Onslayers without dropping a map. These are some high-level teams, with Norception an international league decorated team and Onslayers a roster that has been at the top of Korea. EDG had done it. And more importantly, China had done it. Their region is finally getting recognition they deserve in the Valorant community, all thanks to Kang Kang in the EDG squad and their amazing gameplay. The story of EDG and the underground Chinese Valorant scene will go down as one of the best storylines in 2022 Valorant. And although their run at Champions more or less matched expectations, they ended up drowning in pools, they still had an amazing performance. In their round 1 matchup against Paper Rex, one of the tournament favorites, they went to the last round, last map. And they had a sub on the way doing it. Imagine if they had their full roster. And then they finally got knocked out by Team Liquid, another amazing world-class team. And although they had a short-lived Champions run, this doesn't take away from their emergence as a scene. With their unique playstyle, strong team play, and aim that can match the best in the world, it may not have been this time, but watch out for this squad in this region, because they might just shock the world. And as always, thank you for watching. Thank you for watching another video. I'm back in school. I'm gonna be a little bit more busy these days, but you know what? I'm still coming out with banger content. Hope you're enjoying Champions. It's been so fun so far. If you want to keep up with what I'm doing, you can follow me on Twitter. And also, if you watch this whole video, subscribe. What are you doing? Not that many of you are subscribed. You're watching, but you're not subscribing. Subscribe! As always, thank you. Have a good one. Peace.